Ticket. Jake Bogus and Nick Barr.
You look like if I touched you, you'd be sticky, and frankly, you smell bad.
All sports, only sports, and it is on FM. Crystal clear stereo sound. You've got the Ticket, 93.7 KNTK. Take a break from the Tom Osborne retiring as AD chatter to preview the game this Saturday. The Wisconsin Badgers are coming to town. A Wisconsin Badgers team with lowered expectations now after 4 games. We bring in a friend of the show, and we have him on often when talking Wisconsin athletics, Ben Worgull, BadgerNation.com. Ben, big news in Lincoln today with Tom Osborne retiring. We even got a chance to talk to AD Barry Alvarez, too. Coming from a guy in Wisconsin, what do you know about Tom Osborne?
I know that he's had a big impact. Nebraska's moved to the Big Ten, and without him, this game this weekend probably doesn't happen. And I think that Wisconsin's road to the Rose Bowl doesn't happen. I mean, Wisconsin loses 2 games last year, and without the Big Ten championship game, Wisconsin in a different season may or may not be in that game. And I think, you know, when I hear Tom Osborne, I've never met the man. I've obviously heard a lot about him, and what I hear about him reminds me a lot of Alvarez. And just the way Alvarez kind of invigorated this program, this Wisconsin program, just kind of the way Osborne did when he took over. I mean, the two are very similar, so it's not a surprise that both come from very similar backgrounds, very similar progressions. It's only a matter of time, I think, too, before Alvarez kind of takes that next step and really permanently retires to his home down there in Naples. But two tremendous guys, Alvarez too, and especially Osborne. I mean, the way Barry Alvarez is revered here, I can imagine that Tom Osborne is respected and cherished the way that he is down in Lincoln.
Yeah, no doubt. Certainly a lot of storylines, regarding this Wisconsin-Nebraska matchup, and especially coming in this Saturday. Did you guys, I guess, where is this team at mentally right now? Because from the outside, it would appear that they are rattled. But at the end of the day, I know they're only 3-1. But the way they've arrived at this point has not been pretty. How do you think this team's feeling right now?
Well, if you talk to the fan base, you think that the apocalypse is coming,
right?
Because this team has lost a non-conference game for the first time since 2003. So people originally were joking, hey, we can't wait for the Packers season. Well, now the Packers are having all sorts of issues, too. So no matter where you turn up here, your sports team is having issues. I mean, we could bring up the Brewers, too, if we really wanted. But you look at Wisconsin football from the program standpoint, the guys within the team, and I don't think there's a sense of panic or a sense of urgency yet, although there have been a lot of knee-jerk issues the last 3 weeks. The last 3 weeks, someone's lost their job or their starting spot. So with that, you look at that like, oh, this team can't figure it out yet. But you look at Wisconsin, the players that we've talked to are really kind of confident in the sense that they've gone through all this adversity through 4 weeks this season, and they're still 3-1. You know, they haven't played a Big Ten game yet, so their record's kind of reset now going forward. And they know they haven't played their best game yet, and they feel that all the pieces are kind of in place for them to have a good team. They just haven't put together a complete performance yet. I mean, there's been flashes without question in every game on offense, on defense, and special teams. It just hasn't all been put together yet. And so I think that silver lining there is that the guys know that, man, maybe this Saturday could be the day where we put everything together. And against Nebraska and Lincoln, it better be, otherwise you're going to get blown out of the water.
Ben Worgull is our guest, BadgerNation.com. Interesting quarterback situation for the Badgers right now. Is it Stavi or Stave?
Stavi.
Stavi. Okay, thank you. Joel Stavi is going to get the start this Saturday. And when I heard that Danny O'Brien had been pulled from the starting position, it made me wonder why. I haven't followed Wisconsin football as closely as you have, Ben. He doesn't have terrible numbers. What was the decision-making process there?
Turnovers. Danny O'Brien is a guy that reminded me a lot of Scott Tolzien in the way that Scott Tolzien, who's now with the 49ers, just really was efficient. He was very accurate with his passes. He didn't turn the ball over. He was a very good game manager. And that's what we saw with Danny O'Brien, who transferred from Maryland in the spring to come to Wisconsin for a chance to start. I think he only had 2 turnovers through drills throughout the entire fall camp. I mean, Wisconsin charts each drill religiously and meticulously. So for him to only have 2 turnovers and all those situations really reminded a lot of people, especially the media when we got to see a couple practices, of just the way Tolzien controlled the game. We saw that in the opener, too, against Northern Iowa. I mean, O'Brien, I think, completed over 80% of his passes, was efficient, didn't turn the ball over, and then all of a sudden, the game against Oregon State at Corvallis, he had a really bad interception. He fumbled in the red zone, and the offense only scores 7 points, and they lose. And then the very next week, the same thing happened. O'Brien fumbled inside his own 30, which led to a Utah State touchdown. He threw a bad interception, but fortunately for him, it was called back because of a roughing the passer penalty. So Bielema makes the kind of surprising call at halftime to yank O'Brien and insert Stavi. And Joel played okay. He did lead the team back thanks to a special teams touchdown, thanks to Monte Ball. But he got the start last week. He looked pretty good. Obviously, there's still some, redshirt freshman type errors that he made, but he didn't turn the ball over. He moved the offense. I mean, Wisconsin scored 36 points, which is their most points they've scored all season. So the offense made steps forward, and that earned Stavi another start this weekend against Nebraska.
Ben, what's the latest with Monte Ball, and why hasn't he dominated?
Well, Monte is expected to play this weekend. We talked to him yesterday. He said that he passed his concussion test that was administered by the doctors Tuesday morning. He went through conditioning drills only yesterday. He expects himself to practice today in a no-contact jersey. Then he expects to be medically 100% cleared by Thursday or Friday and then play on Saturday. So according to him, he's going to play. If he can play, he's going to play. And now Brett Bielema he's not always real honest with the media when it comes to injuries. So we're taking Monte at his word that he's going to play. He feels good. He has no symptoms. And so we in the media expect him to be on the field on Saturday. Why has he struggled? That's a really good question. I mean, you look at his numbers, his carries are up astronomically. I think he has at least 45 more carries through the non-conference season this year than he did last year, and his yards are down, and his touchdowns are certainly down. He only has 3 touchdowns, I believe, through 4 games. The struggles really date back to the offensive line. I mean, it's a line that went through a lot of transition like it usually does. 3 guys went to the NFL. The center now, Travis Frederick, has moved from left guard to center where he's playing this year. So you really have 4 players in new positions. And the big issue was bringing in Mike Markuson, the offensive line coach, who spent 14 years in the SEC with Houston Nutt. And, you look at Markuson's resume, it's very, very good. He's coached a number of guys to All-American status. He has that BCS experience. The problem was, and what we didn't see before, we kind of got glazed over a little bit, was Markuson's experience is in the spread offense and not the power running game that Wisconsin likes to run. And there was a lot of issues in the spring with just the 2 sides really kind of getting familiar with each other, getting used to the terminology, getting used to the new style. And one offensive lineman told me a 4th grader could come in and play the offensive line with some of the dub-down techniques they were learning. It just wasn't a good mix. And because of that, the running game suffered. Bielema ended up firing Markuson after the second game, after the Oregon State game, and promoted a graduate assistant by the name of Bart Miller, who studied under Bob Bostad when Bostad was at New Mexico and then at Wisconsin. So that old school running style, blocking style, that old school physicality that Wisconsin has been known for the last 5-10 years is starting to return, and it just doesn't happen overnight. And you just can't flip a switch and they go back to where they were last year, and that was just running over people. So it's been a process. Obviously, Monte could have had huge numbers last week. UTEP wasn't the best team against the run, but obviously the concussion knocked him out. But you look at the overall running game last week, it really gives people hope that the running game, the running style that Wisconsin had in the last couple of years is starting to return.
He is Ben Worgull, BadgerNation.com. You mentioned, the offensive line coach, the shift there, but 6 assistants in the offseason, the coaching turnover on the staff for Wisconsin, it's been brutal. Have you seen that chemistry affect the team?
Well, not just the turnover with the offensive coaches. I mean, 4 new offensive coaches. You have a new quarterback, the new offensive lineman, like I mentioned. You lost Nick Toon, who was one of the best wide receivers in school history, to the NFL. There was a lot of transition on offense. And just from looking at it now through 4 weeks and through a fall camp and a spring camp, the worst transition was on the offensive line. I mean, the new wide receiver coach is he's a very aggressive personality. He's a good personality for a young wide receiver core. Matt Canna has really been kind of handcuffed a little bit because of the struggles in the offensive game, especially with the blocking on the line, the lack of the running game, the issues at quarterback. So he's really had a tough go with it. The new tight end coach has been fantastic on the recruiting front. So the big issue was just the offensive line. And unfortunately, at Wisconsin, success in offense starts by establishing the run. And really, in the first 3 games, they didn't do that. They got really lucky against Northern Iowa. I mean, they lost at Corvallis against Oregon State. They got really, really lucky at Utah State. Utah State was the better team, and they missed a 30-some-yard field goal with about 5 seconds left to win that game. And then last week, UTEP is obviously a 1-3 team for a reason. So they really haven't played a team of a Nebraska, a Michigan State, Ohio State quality yet. So it's really hard to say how the mix is going because we just don't know yet in that sense.
I want you to expand on that a little bit because you look at the Vegas spread and it's at about 13 right now, and you look at what's happened and how we've arrived at this 3-1 record for Wisconsin. Would you say the perception of Wisconsin right now are they undervalued? Are they overvalued? Are they, as a lot of people are saying, boy, this Badger team's not very good. What have you seen in just the short amount of time? Do you think, is Wisconsin better than people think? Or no?
It's a great question because we don't know exactly what Stavi can do.
Yeah.
You take the team right now where they are, and they certainly were overrated to start the year at 12. I think they were in the AP poll. This team has had so much issue with just continuity, with just getting you look at the game last year against Nebraska and how that offense played and how that defense played. That was what we saw last year on Wisconsin almost every game. I mean, their lowest point total last year, I think, was 29 points in that loss to Ohio State. You saw the Rose Bowl where they're just lighting things up offensively. This team right now is going to be a defensive unit, and we've seen that through 4 weeks, how this team, for the most part, is very sound defensively. They've given up big plays from time to time. They've been torched on the wheel route. They've been torched at times in pass coverage. So I think the defense is quietly been undervalued a little bit. I mean, everyone is making a lot of headlines about why Wisconsin isn't good offensively anymore. And like I said, it's just all about that transition. So, I think a lot of people have jumped off the bandwagon, especially up here with this team. I mean, you look at Wisconsin's division, a third of it's ineligible for the postseason this year. So a lot of people just thought Wisconsin was going to walk to Indianapolis and play Michigan State, Nebraska, whoever. Now that's not the case. A lot of people are very concerned about this team in terms of just that they haven't been recognizable yet. Now, I kind of reserve judgment too because they made another drastic change at quarterback with Stavi, and who knows, how he's going to perform. Stavi could go out on Saturday and have a great game and lead Wisconsin to a win, and then everyone's going to jump back on the bandwagon again. But if he performs poorly and there's more issues there, I mean, this could be a really long season for a team that had such high expectations coming into it.
He is Ben Worgull, BadgerNation.com. Great stuff as always, Ben. We appreciate it.
We'll see you this weekend. Thanks, guys.
Hey, you bet.
Thanks, Ben.
Take care. Good stuff there from Ben Worgull. We got a jet. We got George Darlington, secondary coach for Tom Osborne for 30-plus years. He's going to tell us his thoughts on Tom Osborne retiring up next. It is the